Yeah, hello. I am going to be critiquing this run that I got on stream a bit earlier today. This was like one of 4 runs today, I think, but it was probably the cleanest run overall. I think this was the second one of the day, and I don't know, both these runs were really good. They were both sub 27 to Ranger and Major, which is considered pretty good, and they both ended up being, I think the first one I died on 63, it was really good pace, and this one was 49:30, so good, not like crazy good, but good. And I thought I'd have a look at essentially just critiquing the shit out of a sub 50 run, because a lot of people seem to think that the sub 50 bracket is like, you must be playing near damn perfectly to get them, but the reality is people make mistakes. They may not be as big as people going for sub 60s and all that, but they're still mistakes. So this is going to be sort of a self-flame, but also really going over every fine point within the run to really show that there are points to improve even at this level, and maybe also to shed some light on some of the finer points, some of the more interesting things I could have done in these circumstances. So from now on, I'm going to be pointing out pretty much everything. I'll be looking quite carefully. I think the first 2 or 3 waves are just fine. Like, you kind of have to be trying to lose any ticks in these waves. I'll explain some cool things as we go, like barraging this wave here, for example. You may just say like, oh, why not blood barrage it, or why not chin it? But you have the chance, a higher KO chance with ice barrage. And if you freeze all of them, they die on the spot, instead of having a death animation. So this is the first mistake. I went for the chin there instead of going for the blob. In my mind, I thought, well, 1 chin probably won't kill it. I took the gamble, bad gamble. And now I have 2 ticks of blob death animation, which I have nothing to do in. So that's mistake number 1. That's a 2-tick time save that I could have had. This is an interesting wave where the bat spawns really far away, so I'm throwing a chin there. I think I throw 2. That's probably what I should have done, yeah. So I lose a tick on that, but I get the bat killed. Might have been better to blow wipe the second one. I don't really know if I could have made that, but that's all fine. I'm not going to be talking about very weird prayer saves or anything, because how you use your prayer is kind of up to you. If I do a miss flick, that's an obvious mistake in most cases. Like just then I missed the blob flick. That's just a mistake. Here I didn't step in early enough. Should have done to let the blobs clump up. My bad there, and I didn't blow pipe the last NPC. Just bad positioning, leading to a couple of bad clicks. That's all there. All right, double blob. Got the KO on that blob. Got the T-bow XP drop to kill it. Moved around, tried to get the other one. This is all fine. I should have inspected the nibblers on the pillar to see how many there were, so I could chin it directly instead of wandering about a bit in limbo. Turns out chins landed on the range mage mini blob up down south, so that wasn't too bad either. This is slightly better than your average run to begin with. And then just a standard double nibbler wave. Onto the melee at 2:30, very normal time. So here I think when there's 2 nibblers on the pillar, it's okay to chin the melee as long as the last chin you do is likely to kill it. So I could have chinned maybe a tick earlier there, but it was still dragging across, and you really don't want to kill that melee last, so that worked out just fine as well. Here, mistake. For some reason my brain was like, hey, there's a blob, so I tried to flick mage. No blob. Ended up killing the bat, and I pay for that in another 2 ticks lost, because the melee death animation is longer than the bat. So these things don't seem to be like major errors, but every time you make a mistake, it's another 2 ticks, another 2 ticks. Just adds up. So killing that bat first to make life a bit easier. Not mistimed, but misjudged how far away that was, so I lose yet another tick there. An elementary mistake. We're now at 108 range. We really want to be at 109. And I've got about a minute left on the timer, so it's not too big a deal until you get to T-bow waves, but it causes issues. Here my positioning could have been a bit better, so I could have been closer to that nibbler, and therefore I wouldn't have had to chin the ranger and lost out on the accuracy bonus. That's a really minor thing, but it's still something to pick up on. This is a nice catch here. Getting rid of that bat is perfectly fine as well. I do think to myself sometimes that it's worth dragging around that melee and then chinning blob with it, but in this case, I mean, 2 hits even killed it, so yeah. This is another recurring thing. Whenever I'm killing mini blobs, a lot of the time I have a bad habit of leaving the major till last, and of course that's just not ideal because you want to barrage it, right? Here I wasted essentially 3 ticks by going for the chin on those nibblers. I did not need to do that, just a complete waste of time. And this is just a mistake with the click. I thought I clicked the chin and I missed it. So that was good intention there to go for the massive chin stack. I kind of just messed it up a little bit though. Not too bad. And there we saved the timer on the major, on the melee. But that could have been a nice chin. This is actually a very similar wave, and I think I do something a little bit different here, yeah. So I've been doing this more recently, where I've been dragging using that melee to get a better blob clump, instead of just killing the blob and having a bad melee position, because now him on the south side like this means, of course, we get that ginormous stack. I don't really count killing that ranger to be too much of a mistake, even though it's like, again, 2 ticks lost here, because how likely are you to be able to react to the idea that you need to move immediately on that chin XP drop? I don't know. But yet another little thing. The fact that I've been talking non-stop about mistakes is kind of worrying me, to be honest, but that's what happens when you're sort of super critiquing. Here, I should not be killing this melee, I should be killing the other one and dragging this one closer because of this problem now, where if I want to bring this guy closer, the other guy is still dying and still dying and still dying, and now when I want to do the chin on the 2 nibbler clump, I can't because he's dead. And I can't even be sure that he was dragging or not because I don't have the death thing on. So we'll call that another 2 ticks lost. And you know what's crazy? Even at this point in time, we're talking like 20 plus seconds of mistakes, like genuine mistakes that could have been handled differently. Here, bad chin, could have blowpiped, -1 tick. Goes to show, this is like a good time. 6-12 is a good time, but this could very easily be sub 6. Yeah, I'm hoping the mistakes actually end up slowing down a little bit. These waves are always hard though, like, it's almost impossible for players to not make these mistakes. I don't think, you know, even the best of the best are gonna make some of these. As we get to big NPCs like the Ranger and the Major, I mean, just flicking them doesn't really count as a mistake if I misflick or something, that's just a little bit of an error. Not like a positional or a tick loss mistake. That was actually a mistake there. So this is what I sort of categorize as a potential mistake. It's something that I did wrongly, but I wasn't punished for it. In that case, stepping back for the bat and attacking and not moving in on the tick where I had just attacked means I might not have made it to the Ranger in time. So that's a potential tick loss, not an actual tick loss. It's still just as bad in terms of inferno ability, I suppose. So this is all fine. We're going to be dragging that Ranger closer in a second, and I probably could have got 2 hits off on that nibbler, but no biggie. It's a bit hard to tell there. And to think this was one of my cleaner runs today. Going straight for that mini blob. In hindsight, I probably shouldn't have gone for those clumps there. That was a misclick dragging out that melee blob, unfortunately. And this here, that's a bad chin. It may look like a good chin because it's from a distance, but it's one of those diagonals where running towards it and blowpiping would have hit it pretty much on the same time. It's not what you would call a technical time loss. That's actually an accuracy bonus loss and a max hit loss, because if you throw a chin, you need to be dragged while throwing the chin, or it's not a good chin. You could have just lost a tick and blowpiped, and your blowpipe has, you know, you turn your blowpipe into a 3-tick blowpipe, but you maintain the accuracy bonus and the damage bonus that is better than a chin. I think I lost a tick there going for the bat, got a prayer wrong, no biggie. And here I should have been moving towards the Ranger. We lose the tick there. That sort of movement right there, though, is the movement where, you know, you lose your tick, but it's still better to do that than to chin, because your chin is just not as good as a 3-tick blowpipe. Messiest wave so far, though. Not really messiest, but wave I took most damage on. This is all standard stuff. Moving in. I wasn't flicking the blob on the southeast this time, so that's kind of my bad. Now we're going to pull him closer. It's okay to tank a little bit as well. I mean, as long as you're not overwhelming yourself, I think it's fine. So we could have chinned the ranger there as I was moving in to save some time. I'm inclined to believe 2 pipes and a better movement. I think 2 pipes and going towards the ranger, or dragging the melee to the ranger, is better as well. But that's kind of preference right there. Here I should have piped the melee or just gone straight for the ranger. And here I should have stepped into the melee such that I could move to a position where I could have chinned not the melee itself, but the nibblers, because it took 2 chins to hit that instead of just what it should have taken 1. So that was just sort of like a bit of preemptive action there, could have helped a lot. Saved the 3 ticks. Nice little melee safe spot that I love to use. Nothing wrong here. Bit of a scary drag there, but paid out just fine. We got those nibbles on the south there. I don't actually remember what I did here. Ah, there we go. So this is actually a really nice transition, but okay, there we go. Misclicked the bat, lost a tick there, and I lost another tick going back to the ranger, I think. So that was a camera angle problem. I needed to have it a little bit further around. What I like to do a lot of the time is I zoom out to increase my distance I can click behind me a lot of the time, and that's not a very good way of doing things, so a bit more attention needed there. Here, while this is like no doubt in my mind just a tick loss to move back like that, I feel like that's probably the best move in order to not have to, you know, take blob hits while you're dealing with the major and the melee and the ranger. So it's a bit hard to say whether that was actually good or not. I think it very much depends on your HP and how confident you are taking that damage. Should have gone for the 2 pipe hits on the nibbler. We lost the tick. That's just a problem with not committing. No reason to not commit to that, because I can always change target if needed. Very bad drag there. That can always lead to some bad issues. Major awareness was fine there. Probably should have killed the major first, but not a problem. And now this is all standard. We're starting a bit further close towards the a bit further towards the pillar now, just to get some HP as we're barraging. Give myself some more time. Getting close to that blob early, getting the extra hit on the ranger. Very nice play. And then of course switching to mage spray. Should have targeted the mage blob there. Tried to click myself out. Not ideal. Right now, rewatching this, I'm thinking that melee's gonna dig. I actually can't remember if it does, but it sure as hell feels like it. Please don't dig. There it is. Okay, so me rewatching that picked up on it, but me doing the actual thing didn't think about it, so... yeah, hindsight's a bitch. But I think only a tick lost on that technically, so no biggie. Ah, yes, okay, the tank. Not counting prayer flick mistakes. Happens to everyone. Going for the 1 hit there I think is also wise in case you drag it round badly. But I wouldn't be too surprised if I was able to get 2 blowpipe hits in the melee there with a bit more careful pathing perhaps. -1 tick for not coming round earlier, although that is a safety measure against the melees, so I'm willing to let that one slide as just something that is probably safer to do, considering the HP. Things like that, where you're giving yourself a safety margin, I don't necessarily think they should be counted as mistakes. It's just the nature of the content. You're gonna take damage and use supplies at some point, so juggling that is fair game. So losing, you know, like 10 ticks over the course of a run to maintain a higher level of safety, to maintain a higher level of, well, just higher HP is perfectly fine. Misclick, again, not going to be counting that as sort of an actual mistake to like procedure. That's just me playing a bit silly. Would have liked to have gone into melee range on that second melee right there in order to actually keep it in a safer position instead of dragging towards me. And I probably should have chinned the nibblers there, although chinning ranger is very, very likely to hit, so not too worried about that. In fact, I don't know if it's the same, because they have the same like defense. It might be that's not a problem. I'll have to have a look at that. Bad pro flick there, not paying attention to the HP of the ranger. Lost 1 tick of rigor. I don't think I lost the hit, just the rigor hit. So that may not be a time loss, but it is still a mistake. And a nice 252, what we like to see. This gives us a 1529 to major, I think, which is pretty damn good as it turns out. When we're speedrunning for sub-50s and just generally good times, we want to have a look at around anything, you know, anything about 16 minutes or lower is considered good. So the sub-16 is like the time barrier we're always looking for. But yeah, I mean, anything sub-1530 is exceptionally good. So from this point onwards, a lot of it is just RNG, T-bow RNG. But it's still a lot of room to make good plays and actually gain time like that. Here I think safe spotting the bat is possible and should be done. Ah, that's not the way I should be doing things. I took a bat hit doing that, which is very silly. 2 bat hits actually. I could have just gone to the bat safe spot directly instead of doing that sort of roundabout movement. I don't think I lost any ticks, but taking bat hits is not good. No reason to. I think I lost a tick on the start there, maybe even 2. And at this HP, I should honestly not be barraging. Having a quicker setup gives you more options with chins to like move around and get to a better position where you can't be hit by bats. Not that it can be avoidable here, but it would have allowed me to chin the nibbler and bat clump, so... Lesson here is, don't be a pussy. At 60 HP on this wave, I'm fine. Bats are dead, so T-bowing at this HP is actually correct instead of blowpiping. Up until around 25 HP, it's better to T-bow here, when it's single major and no respawnable things. So this is fine. I should really correct the position of my T-bow and my blowpipe, but I still managed to get it. T-bow was definitely doing some work this run, so we got some nice big hits to see. So yeah, like when there's other NPCs available, blowpiping major like this is the norm. Went for the blowpipe spec there on the blob, tried to KO it with the extra delay there, with the 1 tick delay on the spec, so I could go back to the major. Didn't quite plan out, and I do stand by that as being a good option. I mean, it's not likely the major would have been able to respawn in the potential 2-tick window that I would have had on a miss. Bad timing moving to the bat there. I should have delayed it with a better T-bow hit, and I got punished for it. Took a 16 from the bat. Should really be blowpiping that major now, and I could drag the blob closer using the north pillar, so this isn't like a massive time loss or anything, but it's not quite as good as piping there. Potential ticks gone again. Stepped in a bit early there, but no problem. You can always take damage and get HP back, but you can't get time back. So with the bats coming in, the key thing is to time the range spray so that it's on point. And actually on time with the off tick. I think I still took one there though. I don't know if that was me or if that was just bad timing. So this isn't one of the I remember this now. I made a very bad play here. I make the decision to come across, and this basically, sure, it safe spots the bat, which was like my intention, but it also prevents me from getting to the easy access to that blob there. So I lose a tick there, even on the T-bow hit, and I do have to run across instead of being in a slightly better position. One misclick there. Should have pathed back after I made the misclick. Like, sure, the misclick happens, but I should have adjusted to that. And the major pathed out badly, so again, a messy wave. One of my things now with double blob waves is that I like to start really centered in order to maximize the chance of the blob seeing me on spawn to set up a 2-tick. And I started from my regular spot there, so this is less of a mistake, more of like a thing to note to improve on specific spawns. I didn't even pray against the blob there, I don't know why. And I think I didn't lose any ticks there, so that's fine. That's all good. And we're entering to melee at about 2020, so yeah, crazy what the potential is on these runs if it's like done perfectly. I don't know, I'm just estimating, but I'd say we have about 40 seconds of wasted time so far. 40 to 50 seconds of wasted time. And you know, on the face of it, it looks like a good run, but add all these things up and yet again it's like, yo, we're about a minute behind where we should be. So whenever we're dealing with majors and melees singularly, or with bat safe spot behind melee, we always turn off run so we can walk about. Kind of drags the melee correctly without it off ticking. Don't think I should have chinned that, but in short notice, fine. However, it is yet another 2 ticks lost. Sorry, tick loss. For reference, a good time getting to like major and melee for a sub 50 is something around 2040, so we are, you know, around 20 seconds ahead of what would be considered a good or standard pace for this kind of thing. Bit of fucky pathing here to get hits on the melee, on the major. Not the worst work I've ever done, but yeah, not too smart. Awkward one though, very awkward. Chinning bat and major is good. And pre-setting up the bat safe spot is good as well, so. That there is also fine, where, sure, I want to kill the melee first, ideally. But I see no problem with, you know, on a 90%, I'm sure I killed it XP drop. There's no harm switching targets there, like. Generally trusting intuition is good, I'd say. I think I lost the tick there switching back to my T-bow. Just a bad click. And I gotta be a little bit careful with the melee digging right now. There it is. It's always a bit surreal watching these runs back, because I know it's gonna happen, and I'm sure I was thinking about it during the run, but it's not super obvious. I was moving about here on the mini blobs to try and get the melee to path, so I could chin the entire stack, but couldn't quite figure it out. This is one of the things that still eludes me to this day, is like really specific melee pathings around mini blobs. And it has to do with what you target as well as the position it spawns in and all that, so. Should have moved back to the bat safe spot, taking hits from the bat. It's not good enough. If I'm being really careful in this HP, there's no reason why I couldn't take a step to the west and let the bat come around, and then chin the bat and the nibbler, but that's pushing it even for these kind of speedruns. Okay, melee dig is not really much I could have done about it in this case, I don't think. Here's an example of like just getting the pathing round so I can get a good chin off. And of course it does pay off indeed. From the XP drop, I wasn't too sure, so I'm not too fussed about that second chin there. I mean, it killed it anyways, so I think it's not even a tick loss. I feel like I lost a tick there going for the bat, though. Quite a bit of trouble with melee digging at bad times in this run, as it turns out. This is like kind of sloppy footwork, a little bit. And yeah, probably should have, again, killed the melee first and then dealt with the mini blobs. Another 3-2 ticks. I think I've killed melee first in that scenario about 4 times so far. I want to say about 4 or 5. So that's 8 ticks gone, just by that alone. Well, mage and range waves coming up shortly. This is a nice little drag here to get some attack time on the melee. An awkward drag though on my end. This kind of played in my favor because of course the melee came round and now I can shin it. So it's not all bad even when you make mistakes. I definitely should have gone for that blob here though instead of going for that shin, because you guessed it, not a 2-tick time loss but a 3-tick time loss, because I even spec'd it to finish it off. And then a shin to the head instead of a blowpipe makes a total of 4 ticks lost on that blob alone. There's a tick loss there because I was a bit silly about my pathing there. If I had actually focused a bit, I would have known that the melee to the north would have dragged round regardless. So either taking a further step south early, or being prepared to off-tick it, which I don't think it was the play there. So this is a nice little off-tick here, just an immediate one. Definitely nothing wrong with this. They can always be improved in terms of like instantaneous off-ticking, but there's nothing wrong there for sure. Oh, hang on, let me get my music. There we go. Yeah, those kind of off-ticks are super satisfying as well. Yeah, this was a 26:53 entry, so sub 27, and we're trying to aim for anything 27:30 approximately is pretty good. Another really nice off-tick there, giving myself a little margin window of safety. These are kind of the waves you always get to show off a little bit and have some fun, and also set up like really quick patterns. There's other ways to off-tick that using the east side, but that's a more direct and more interesting route. -1 tick there on the blowpipe. If memory serves, I had one very bad wave in the late waves, but the rest were pretty good. I definitely consider these specific waves to be much harder to lose time on. When you're just in a nice 2-tick pattern with a major and a melee or a ranger, it's like, it's kind of hard to mess it up. So this is pretty standard here. We're going to wait for that bat to come around instead of challenging the major directly. Waiting for it to die means I don't have to take on a bat and a major. Now I know for a fact there's a nibbler on the south pillar here, which is why I decided to not just go around to the north side. I wanted to make sure I could attack this ranger and pull here instead of being stuck behind the pillar and having to deal with this. So normally tanking bat's a bad move, and But in this case, it's actually useful. Nothing wrong with that wave. Moved back a bit too early and same-ticked them. Didn't actually lose any time, so it was a mistake but quickly fixed. That's a very standard method to off-tick that. Best part about it is that it usually, when you're dealing with a blob like that, will off-tick that as well. And here we're going to go around to the east side to make sure that ranger builds closer. And hopefully if I don't mess it up, I messed it up, and I chinned the ranger, I won't lose too much time. So we gained like a tick there versus losing one, and then we lost another one going around the corner. So, net 0 tick gain from that blob death anyway. Better thing to do is just to be pathing out earlier and off-ticking it early, and therefore getting a good blur pipe off, or two even. This is a nice free wave. If I recall, I had a lot of northeast majors in this run. I think I didn't off-tick that correctly. Another player error. No time losses though. Only care about the time losses and the potential time losses. Or the major mistakes, I suppose. For anyone watching and like trying to improve in terms of their PB, one thing I noticed a lot of like mid 55 PBers do, but they or not do rather, is they don't flick mini blobs. And I'll take every damn chance I get to flick every little mini blob. So like even if it's just a ranger and a mini blob stack, I'll still absolutely go and try and flick the mage prey whenever it gets to the blob stack, and it really does add up over time. Or, you know, just tanking a melee mini blob, it can still hit you for like 18s, so always flick your mini blobs, don't neglect them, because those guys hurt. It's one of those things that once you sort of make habit, it's, you know, it's not too hard to deal with. Alright, good blob off tick. Might be able to chin the bat here if I'm careful. Oh! Nice. So the melee moved out badly. I was actually trying to reconnect the blob and the melee there, but I should have known it wouldn't work due to the pathing. Still a very good chin though. I've got no clue if... Oh. Okay, in my mind, I remember this now. I had seen that Nibbler go to the pillar, I was like, gotta go for it, and then I realized I saw pillar HP and I was like, well, that's pointless. So I chucked it at the major instead. That was like damage mitigation. Or damage control. Chins really aren't that good against the major, but they're not like crazy inaccurate, so yeah. There's the mini blob flick. Always gotta do it. Or gotta try to. Here I figure like there's no reason to like mess around with that. I may as well just go for that guy. He's in a nice easy place and I get rewarded with a nice 240, the first of the run I believe. And here I do blowpipe spec last on the ranger, but I also use a phantom, so this negates the 1 tick delay. It overkills it. But yeah, don't blowpipe spec stuff when it's the last thing alive, you will lose a tick. Unless you overkill it. I can't confirm this, but I'm pretty sure it just overkills no matter what. But I have a feeling that if you don't score 2 red hit splats, it's not going to work. So for example, if your splash, if your barrage splashes, you still will have casted it, but you won't have gained HP and you won't have affected the kill time. So it's a bit 50-50. The best rule of thumb there is, to stop it from happening entirely, the best rule of thumb is just don't blowpipe spec stuff when it's the last thing alive. Just blowpipe something new. It's better anyway because, you know, you want to try and deal more damage with it. So if you're dealing with like 2 rangers, for example, and one of them is 50 HP and one of them is 20 HP, you spec the 50 HP one because you have a chance to deal that damage. That's the idea of it anyway. Doesn't necessarily mean it's always wrong to spec or not, but yeah. I think I lost a tick there, but I don't know if that was my own fault or if that was server lag, so we'll chalk that down to server lag because I clearly don't make any mistakes. Yeah, a lot of northeast majors, so this is nice and free. The only thing to pay attention to here is the timing to off-tick and how I take a step to the east there to make sure the bat is on a different cycle for the major. The other thing to note is to actually get my prayers correct to actually deal damage, so yeah. I don't think doing like one unrigged hit is too bad. I think I've only done 2 this run, but shouldn't really have to deal with them at all. This step here isn't just a flex step, it's also to make sure the melee is off-ticked when it comes around, which is right about now. And then the step back here is an extra step, 2 steps back instead of just the 1 step back, because if you're not sure about the exact timing, then sometimes you get a bit shafted and he'll move around to the north on a 1 in 4 chance, I guess. So that's just be a little bit more careful. This is all fine, bit of wonky pathing to try and get to that bat. But no ranger hit taken because it was on the off tick. Probably should have tried to queue up that chin regardless. I lost a bit of time there due to that. Didn't pray correctly on the way down here, and now we're losing time. So probably about 4 ticks lost there, and 1 off prey taken from the ranger. I'm willing to bet that this is probably the worst wave I did in terms of a solve in the late waves. And I generally consider the late waves to be easier to solve because with more things around, you have more ability to just attack stuff and not really lose time. This looks same ticked. Yep. That's fine there. Little off tick. Wasn't at danger of... Actually, I think I was at danger of dying. It's just really unlikely. That's the kind of HP threshold I'm willing to chance usually, so not too fussed about that. Probably should have noticed the ranger was low, but didn't. So there we go. Another 2 ticks down for the blob. Got some good healing in there. Brewing like that isn't the best. You should do it at the end of a wave, but making sure you have your HP up is fine there. I mean, it's minimal time. Bit of inventory reorganization, very, very underrated. And I should have moved 1 to the east here, and that would have left the bat behind the pillar. And instead the bat is now going to be attacking me, which is not so nice. And -1 tick there, because I didn't move back for the bat. So this could have been avoided once again by either moving out early, or just by making sure that I move 1 to the east and letting that bat slide behind the pillar. Plenty of options there to deal with that. This is a nice move I like to do. Move back, take the melee, this positions the blobs behind the pillar, then go back to these guys praying range. Everything is safe spotted, the melee's taking a hit. And yeah, it's just nice. That was a bit scary there. That was actually unplanned. I went round, instinctively prayed mage, and then realized the ranger would drag round. They were off-ticked, but that was still effectively a mistake on my end, so... Right, 62, the hardest wave. Not a very nice spawn, but it could be worse. It's more optimal to start there with a blowpipe on the bat rather than a T-bow. This gives you that option. That gives you a bit more chance to kill. This is me misreading my XP drops and not going for the bat well enough. And I decided to spec the major, which I think in hindsight is still a good choice instead of on the bat, thus getting a bit more damage out of the spec. Specking bats isn't always bad. If you really want to kill them and you just don't want them to exist, then by all means. And I don't think I could have got the melee to drag here. I was kind of trying, but yeah, wasn't going to happen, so that's fine. Yeah, should have moved back. -1 tick. So yeah, another not like amazing wave. Definitely 4 or 5 ticks lost overall. Awkward spawn, and I think I try and amend this here. Yeah, I regret this decision a lot. It's wave 63, my pillar's like 40% HP. There's like no way in hell it's going down. So it's not the worst idea to wipe out those nibblers, but in honesty, I'd rather have that pillar be low so I can use it for the majors and actually get some damage on them. Here I think I've got off-tick blobs by 2 ticks, sorry 1 tick, so I have to alternate here, which is the right thing to do. It just took me a little bit to figure it out. And I definitely took major ranger hits and a melee hit there, so... Yeah, bad plays all around on this wave. This is the worst wave by far in the late waves. Been a bit hit or miss on these occasionally. And I'm trying to get my stats back, so... I don't really know how much time is lost on this wave, but it's certainly no small amount. Here... That's a potential mistake, because I could have KO'd the major there and then not had anything to kill during the downtime of the blob death. But from here on out, the rest should be pretty free. I'd like to see not so many mistakes, honestly. Ah, okay, that drag is like the worst thing in the game when it comes to Inferno. Very hard to deal with. That is just annoying, and like even looking at this now, I think that's hard to deal with. I did find an off-tick quickly, which is fine. My alternative was to like step under melee, brew, and find an off-tick. I don't think that was like a dangerous situation, I just think that just had to be handled quickly. So, very awkward wave and an awkward drag, everything. But not inherently a bad wave, we're still keeping up DPS. Still very much manageable. Early off-tick, could have dragged around, but I mean, no harm in setting it up. This big mistake should definitely not be going for those nibblers when the pillar is 30% HP. Again, it's the last pillar alive, so I know on the next wave with the double majors that the nibblers are definitely going to go to that pillar, and it's not unlikely that the majors will spawn in one of the 2 spots that help you to get some damage on them. It's an odd one. You go from like learning capes and you want your pillars to be max HP all the time, and nibbler chasing, and then you do speedies and you're like, well, I don't really care about my pillars too much. And you get to a stage where you're like, damn, I really don't care enough, and then your pillars just go down at like wave 60, and then you start caring again. And now we're at a stage where we actually want to like get damage on the majors, and look at the HP on that pillar. It's like, it's still 30%, even with 3 nibblers on it. I'm inclined to believe that this doesn't actually go down at a good time for me. So this is definitely one of the bigger things. This is like this is not like a micro problem. This is a macro problem that I have to be looking at throughout the waves to try and adjust for HP on the pillar, as well as allowing other pillars to go down in a timely fashion. I had some runs today where I'd have 3 pillars up at wave 66, and it was just like, I don't need this. I really shouldn't have this. Anyway, a good damage stack to KO that though. And we're into Jad at sub 43, which is about 30 seconds ahead of sub 50 pace, give or take. Anything 44 minutes into Jad is considered pacing. It's a nice little, like, 44 minutes into Jad, sub 45 into triples, which gives you about 47:30 into Zuck. That's actually a little bit slow, if anything. Yeah, this is like anywhere from 20 to 30 seconds below sub 50, depending on how your Jads go, but this is a good Jad. Nothing wrong here. $42.55, entering at 43.38, so that's a 43-second Jad, which is about 1 T-bow hit faster than the average. The goal here when we're doing these speedies, or at least my goal currently, is to try and get into Zuck pre-46. And then anything like, 230 Zuck, which would be a considerably lucky Zuck, but not outside the realms of possibility. For like, a 1 in you know, you do 10 runs that you end up getting 46, you'll eventually get a sub 49 with a 230 Zuck also. But yeah, a nice quick single jet to begin with. Kind of curious how my Zuck went. I don't remember how it went. Don't think it was too bad though. I said I wouldn't comment on like prayer flicking because it's like all personal preference how you do your prayer flicks, as long as you have enough prayer for Zuck. But I should absolutely try and one tick with Mage Prayer and then flick to range for triples. It just makes life so much easier. I'm fairly quite distrusting, to be honest, when it comes to one ticking though on my ping and whatnot with my bad internet. Bad timing there for me on my T-bow hit there. I didn't think the 7 damage would proc healers. I should have paid more attention to the HP of the Jed. Probably costing me a couple of T-bow hits, so we'll even if it is a couple of T-bow hits, that's 10 ticks worth of T-bowing. That's a lot of time, so yeah, scary stuff. 1 tick lost there on the blowpipe, but worthwhile to make sure I could save 2 from the T-bow hit instead. Blowpiping very low HP Jads is fine, but they do have to be like a sliver of HP. So going into Zuck like right about now would be really nice. And has some really good sub 49 potential. Nice weight, nice chin. Not the best run through, I have to admit. And if memory serves, that healer that is stuck under the Jad never makes it out. He just disappears from reality. I don't think we ever see him again. There he is, he's at the back. Alright, run through doesn't matter too much as long as it's no ticks lost on the Jad, so that's fine. Into Zuck at 46, 35-ish, something like that. And with approximately a 330 or 320 Zuck, this is looking to be just about a sub 50, which is the average for this. This does end on a 49.30, so I had a pretty fast Zuck. I had a sub 3 Zuck, I think. I remember the starting hits were the starting hits here were very good. Definitely leading up to potential no set on the way back across, but unfortunately the very last hit did not land. I think how people do their Zucks is also preference with regards to set tagging, and this is just how I like to do mine. It's not particularly ideal, but my shield has, like, to date never actually died, so I think it's died once, but I really neglected the major for a long time. So I'm willing to say this method of tagging is fine. It makes life easy, no off-ticking to be done. I missed the standard 1 tick from switching from the Ranger to Zuck, which I'm perfectly fine in doing so. It's kind of hard to miss ticks in the Zuck fight up until the point where you're actually dealing with healers. So we have a nice 2-ticked Jad. I missed a tick here because I didn't move across fast enough. So that is actually a genuine tick loss. And we have a healer proc that starts now. And I wasn't really ready for it because I didn't expect the hit to be that big. A decent tag though, all things considered, but we do have a fairly high HP Zuck of 444, which is a little bit higher than I would like. Nothing too crazy, 1 or 2 more T-bow hits will do, but it's still a lot of time. Timer right now is 49, so 30 seconds until the kill. I think that's the only point at which my range level was not max boosted. Had to triple brew to maintain a level of safety, and I think that's another thing that's fine to do. Good hits though, can't complain. One more hit to finish it off, and there we have it. Cool, 4930, mistake-ridden like every run, unfortunately. But overall, I think it honestly really helps to run through runs like this and just really nitpick at it. Definitely a lot there that I can improve on. Definitely some stuff that I'll be focusing a bit more on in the next few runs. So there it is, we destroyed a sub 50. It's no longer glorious, it's just bad. But I hope you enjoyed and learned something new. And yeah, until next time, see ya.